You old hag, get out of my way! Ah! Hag! Get with my mom! Who the hell are you?
The slap echoed through Romano's family restaurant like a gunshot. Martha Jen didn't see it coming. One moment, she was politely asking the manager, a thick-necked man named Derek Palmer, if she could have a few more minutes to decide on her order. The next, her reading glasses were skittering across the checkered floor, and the left side of her face was on fire. "You've had 20 minutes, lady," Derek snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "Order something or get out. This ain't a homeless shelter." The restaurant went silent. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations died, but no one moved. No one spoke. Martha's hand trembled as she touched her burning cheek, her eyes welling with tears, not from pain, but from humiliation. She'd been coming to this restaurant for 30 years, since before her husband Frank passed, since before her arthritis made cooking dinner an impossible task. This was her place, her routine. Tuesday nights at Romano's, 7 o'clock sharp. I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't care what you wanted." Derek leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You're taking up a four-top during dinner rush. Bad for business. Now order or..." He never finished that sentence, because at that exact moment the front door opened and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jackson Reaper Chen didn't need to announce himself. His presence did that for him. 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle earned through decades of survival. Not gym memberships. His Hell's Angels cut the sacred leather vest that marked him as a full-patch member of the most notorious motorcycle club in California, sat across shoulders that had carried more weight than any man should have to bear. The serpent and skull patch on his back caught the restaurant's fluorescent light, red and white. Colors that meant something. Colors that had been earned through blood, sweat, and loyalty that most people would never understand. But Reaper wasn't thinking about patches or colors or club business as he stepped inside Romano's. He was thinking about his mother. His weekly Tuesday night check-in was late. Road captain duties had kept him at the clubhouse longer than expected. Martha never complained when he was delayed. She understood the life. She'd been understanding it for 43 years, ever since her wild, angry son had found a family in the club that his biological father had failed to give him. Reaper's dark eyes scanned the restaurant with the practiced efficiency of a man who learned to assess threats before they became problems. His hand instinctively moved toward his belt, not for a weapon but habit. Club training. Always know your exits. Always know who's watching. That's when he saw her. His mother, sitting alone in the corner booth, hand pressed to her face, shoulders shaking, and Derek Palmer standing over her like a predator over wounded prey. Reaper had killed men before, not something he was proud of, not something he advertised. But in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, violence wasn't optional. It was currency. And Reaper had paid his debts, but those men had been threats, enemies, rival gang members who'd come for his brothers with intent to destroy. What Derek Palmer had just done was different. What Derek Palmer had just done was unforgivable. Reaper crossed the restaurant in 8 strides, each footfall deliberate, controlled. The other diners pressed themselves against their booths, sensing the storm approaching. They knew those colors. They knew what they meant. Smart people got out of the way. Derek didn't notice at first. He was too busy berating Martha, his finger jabbing toward the menu like a weapon. "And another thing, you old bag, if you can't afford to eat here, try the soup kitchen on 5th Street. They don't charge." Reaper's hand closed around Derek's wrist. Not hard. Not yet. Just enough pressure to make the message clear. This conversation is over. "Take your hand off my mother," Reaper said quietly. His voice was granite scraping against steel. "And tell me what happened to her face." Derek spun around, ready to throw his weight around like he'd been doing all evening. His mouth opened for another tirade. Then he saw the cut. The patches, the serpent coiled around a skull, the one diamond that marked Reaper as an outlaw, a man who lived outside society's rules and didn't apologize for it. The color drained from Derek's face like water from a broken glass. I didn't know she was. You didn't know she was what?" Reaper's grip tightened just slightly. "A human being, someone's mother. worthy of basic respect. Martha's voice cut through the tension, soft but firm. Jackson, please. That single word, his real name, not his road name, was the only thing that kept Reaper from dragging Derek outside and teaching him the kind of lesson that ended with hospital beds and police reports. Reaper released Derek's wrist, but his eyes never left the manager's face. You put your hands on her. It wasn't a question. There was a misunderstanding. She was taking too long to, you put your hands on her. The restaurant held its breath. Derek stammered, backing up a step. Look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it was just a tap, okay? Just trying to get her attention, a tap. Reaper's jaw clenched so hard Martha could hear his teeth grinding from where she sat. That what you call assault now? A tap? Martha Jen had been a nurse for 42 years before arthritis forced her into retirement. She'd seen men like Derek Palmer before, bullies who wielded their tiny kingdoms with outsized cruelty, mistaking authority for power. She'd also seen men like her son, rough, dangerous, carrying violence in their bones, who were capable of extraordinary gentleness when it mattered. Jackson, she said again, firmer this time. I'm all right. You're not all right, Ma. Your face is red. You're shaking. I'm shaking because I'm angry, not scared. Martha's voice carried the kind of steel that only mothers who'd raised difficult sons could muster. And I'm angry because this fool, she gestured at Derek without looking at him, doesn't understand that respect isn't something you give based on someone's ability to pay quickly enough or look impressive enough. She finally turned her gaze to Derek, and the weight of 7 decades of life experience bore down on him like a physical force. My husband, God rest his soul, taught our son that a man's worth isn't measured by his wealth or his status. It's measured by how he treats people who can't fight back, how he protects those who are vulnerable, how he stands up when standing up has a cost. Martha's voice never rose, but every word landed like a hammer. You failed that test tonight, Mr. Palmer, spectacularly. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Reaper's expression hadn't changed. Still dangerous, still coiled like a snake ready to strike. But Martha could feel the tension in his arm beginning to ease under her touch. Now, Martha continued, addressing her son, I would very much like to finish my dinner, and I'd like you to join me. What happened next surprised everyone in Romano's family restaurant, including Reaper. Derek Palmer didn't run, didn't call the police, didn't retreat to his office and pretend the incident never happened. Instead, he pulled out a chair from a nearby table, dragged it over to Martha's booth, and sat down. His hands were shaking. His face had gone from red to pale to a sickly shade of gray, but he sat down. Mrs. Chen, he said, his voice cracking slightly, I need to tell you something. Reba's eyes narrowed. His hand moved slightly, positioning himself to react if this idiot tried anything else. Martha placed her hand over her son's weathered fingers over scarred knuckles and waited. Derek took a shaky breath. My daughter, Emma, she's 15. 3 months ago, she was diagnosed with leukemia. The words hung in the air like smoke. The medical bills are. They're crushing us. My wife works 2 jobs. I've been pulling double shifts here, trying to keep the restaurant profitable enough that the owner doesn't fire me. Because if I lose this job, we lose our insurance. And if we lose our insurance, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Emma's treatments are on Tuesdays, Derek continued, staring at his hands. Every Tuesday, my wife takes her to the hospital. 3 hours of chemotherapy. And I stay here managing the dinner rush, pretending everything's fine while my little girl is. His voice broke. While she's suffering. Martha's expression softened, but only slightly. Mr. Palmer, I'm not making excuses, Derek cut in quickly. What I did was wrong. Unforgivable. But I need you to understand, I'm not a monster. I'm drowning. And tonight when you were taking your time with the menu, all I could think was every second she takes is a second. Emma is sitting in that hospital alone because I can't afford to close the restaurant early. Tears were streaming down his face now, and he didn't bother wiping them away. And I snapped at the wrong person, at someone who never deserved it. And I'm so sorry. Reaper had rules, club rules, personal rules, lines he didn't cross. One of those rules, you don't hurt civilians, especially not women, especially not mothers. Another rule: you don't forgive easily. Forgiveness in the outlaw world was weakness, a vulnerability that got you killed. But sitting there watching Derek Palmer fall apart, Reaper was reminded of something his father, his real father, not the sperm donor who'd abandoned them, used to say during late-night garage sessions when Reaper was young and angry and looking for somewhere to belong. Son, every man's fighting a battle you know nothing about. That doesn't mean you let them hurt you or yours, but it means you pause before you destroy them, because sometimes broken people break other people without meaning to. His father had been a biker too, Vietnam vet. Hell's Angel, the man who'd married Martha when Reaper was 7 and shown him what it meant to be part of a brotherhood. He died 10 years ago. Cancer, not violence. And Reaper still heard his voice sometimes, like now. "How old is Emma?" Reaper asked quietly. Derek looked up, confused. "What? Your daughter? How old is she?" 15. She'll be 16 in April, if she... Derek couldn't finish the thought. Reaper was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the restaurant had resumed its normal rhythm, conversations restarting, forks scraping plates, but their little corner remained suspended in time. Finally, Reaper leaned back in the booth, his massive frame somehow seeming less threatening, more human. "I had a sister," he said. "Younger. 12 years younger than me, Lily." Martha's hand tightened on his, but she said nothing. "She got sick when she was 14, different kind of cancer. Doctors said she had 6 months. Reaper's jaw worked, grinding old pain between his teeth. "The club, my brothers, they helped. Fundraisers, charity rides, selling everything we could to help my parents." He glanced at Martha. "Afford the treatments." Derek's eyes widened. "Did she?" "She lived." Reaper's voice was rough, but there was something underneath it now. Something that wasn't anger. Turned 28 last month. Married. Got a kid of her own. Works as a pediatric nurse now, helping other sick kids because she remembers what it was like. A pause. Heavy. Loaded with meaning. "But I remember those Tuesday nights," Reaper continued, "sitting in that hospital cafeteria, watching my mom fall apart while trying to be strong for Lily. Watching my dad work himself into the ground to pay bills, feeling helpless, angry at God, at the world, at everyone who had healthy families and didn't appreciate it." He looked directly at Derek. "I remember what that desperation feels like, that drowning feeling, like you're one bad day away from losing everything that matters." Derek was openly weeping now. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Chen. I'm so sorry." Martha studied Derek Palmer for a long moment. Then she did something that made every person in that restaurant stop and stare. She reached across the table and took Derek's hand. "Mr. Palmer," she said gently, "I accept your apology, and I'm going to tell you something my late husband told me when Jackson was going through his angry years and I didn't know if he'd survive to adulthood." She squeezed Derek's hand. "The hardest thing about being human is that we're all carrying invisible burdens. And sometimes those burdens make us act in ways we're not proud of. What matters is what we do after, whether we run from our mistakes or face them." Martha released his hand and picked up her menu. "Now, I'd like the chicken parmesan, please. Extra marinara, and bring my son the largest steak you have. He's had a long day." Derek stumbled to his feet, nodding frantically, wiping his face with his sleeve. Yes, of course. Right away, Mrs. Chen." "Mr. Tajan, Chen Reaper," Jackson corrected automatically. Then, softer, "And hold on a second." Derek froze. Reaper pulled out his phone, a burner, like most brothers, carried and scrolled through his contacts with the ease of someone who'd made 1,000 calls to organize 1,000 things in the service of his club. "You said Emma's treatments are on Tuesdays at which hospital?" "St. Vincent's." "The oncology wing. Why?" Reaper didn't answer. Instead, he pressed a contact labeled Doc and raised the phone to his ear. It rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. "Reaper. This better be good. I'm in the middle of stitching up Hammer's stupid ass after he tried to... Doc. Need a favor." The voice on the other end immediately changed tone. "In the club, when a brother said he needed a favor, you listened, talked to me. Got a civilian here, manager at a restaurant. His daughter's 15, fighting leukemia. St. Vincent's Oncology. families drowning in bills. There was a pause. Then, and you're calling me because the club's charity fund exists for exactly this kind of thing, and because you run the foundation and know who to contact. Another pause. Longer this time. You want us to help this guy after he did something to warrant you calling me. Reaper glanced at his mother, whose eyes were shining with something that looked like pride. Yeah, Doc, I want us to help. It's about your sister. It's about a kid who deserves a chance, just like Lily got. A sigh came through the phone. All right, give me the details. Name, hospital, what kind of coverage they have. I'll make some calls, see what the foundation can do. Can't promise miracles, but we've got connections, and we've done this before. Reaper rattled off the information while Derek stood frozen, his face cycling through disbelief, hope, and something close to awe. When Reaper hung up, Derek's voice came out as barely a whisper. Why would you, after what I did? Reaper stood, his full height making Derek crane his neck to maintain eye contact. I'm not doing this for you, Reaper said flatly. I'm doing it for Emma. And for every kid who's fighting a battle they didn't ask for. And because he glanced at his mother again. Someone taught me that being strong means protecting people who can't protect themselves, even when they're related to people who've wronged you. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that made Derek's knees go weak. But understand this. You ever, and I mean ever, put your hands on my mother again, or disrespect her or any other person in this restaurant who's just trying to get through their day, there won't be a conversation, there won't be a second chance, we clear? Derek nodded so hard, Reaper thought his neck might snap. Crystal clear? I swear on Emma's life, don't. Reaper cut him off. Don't swear on your daughter. Just be better. That's all. The chicken parmesan was perfect. Martha ate slowly, methodically, the way she'd eaten every meal since her husband passed, savoring each bite because eating alone made food taste like cardboard, unless you really paid attention. But tonight was different. Tonight she wasn't alone. Reaper attacked his steak with the efficiency of a man who'd learned to eat quickly in prison cafeterias and clubhouse cookouts, where food disappeared fast, but every few bites he'd glance up, checking on his mother. Old habits. Protective habits. You didn't have to do that, Martha said quietly, spearing a piece of chicken. Do what? Call Doc. Involve the foundation. That family's not our responsibility. Reaper took a long drink of water, considering his words carefully. His mother had a way of seeing through bullshit, came with being a nurse for 4 decades. So there was no point in lying. Emma's sick, he said finally. Kid didn't choose that, and deserve it. If the club can help, why wouldn't we? Because 3 years ago you told me the charity foundation was stretched thin, too many families needing help, not enough resources. Still true. So why this family? Why now? Ripper set down his fork and met his mother's eyes. Those same dark eyes that had watched him grow from an angry kid into an angrier teenager, into a man who'd found his purpose in a leather cut and a brotherhood most people feared. Because you taught me better, he said simply. And because Dad Frank would have done the same thing. Martha's expression softened. Frank Chen had been gone for a decade, but his influence still echoed through their lives like a ghost that refused to leave. Your father, Martha said, her voice thick with memory, believed that every person deserved a second chance, even the ones who didn't think they deserved it. I know. He also believed that the strongest thing a man could do was choose mercy when he had the power to choose vengeance. Reaper nodded slowly. I remember. Do you? Martha reached across the table, her arthritic fingers closing over his scarred knuckles. Because I saw your face when you grabbed Derek's wrist. I saw what you wanted to do to him. I wanted to hurt him, Ma. Won't lie about that. But you didn't. Because you were there. No. Martha's grip tightened. Because you're your father's son. And because somewhere under all that leather and anger and club politics, you're still the boy who cried when we had to put down our neighbor's dog. The boy who gave his lunch money to the homeless man on 5th Street every week. Boy who, Ma. Reaper's voice was rough. Don't. Why not? Because it doesn't fit the image. Because the Hells Angels aren't supposed to have soft spots. Because it makes this harder. Makes what harder? Reaper pulled his hand back, running it through his hair, a gesture of frustration he'd carried since childhood. Living 2 lives, he said quietly. Being Reaper at the clubhouse, hard, loyal, willing to do what needs to be done. And being Jackson here. With you, remembering that I'm human. Martha studied her son for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She laughed, not a mocking laugh. A sad, knowing laugh. Oh, sweetheart, you think those are two different people. They're not. They never have been. Reaper's phone buzzed halfway through his steak. The screen read, Prez. He glanced at his mother apologetically. I gotta take this. Martha nodded, understanding. Club president calls weren't optional. Prez, Reaper answered, standing and moving toward the restaurant's entrance for privacy. Reaper, Doc just called me. Said you're throwing foundation money at some civilian's kid. Want to explain? Marcus Prez Thompson wasn't angry. His tone was more curious than confrontational. But in the club you explained your actions, especially when they involved club resources. Guy disrespected my mother at dinner, Reaper said, keeping his voice low. Slapped her. I was about to handle it the old way when he broke down. Turns out his daughter's got cancer. Medical bills are crushing him, made him desperate enough to lash out at an old woman. There was a pause on the other end. And you felt bad for him? I felt bad for the daughter. 15 years old. Leukemia, same age Lily was. Another pause. Longer this time. How's your sister doing, by the way? Good. Real good. That's why I called Doc. Prez was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Less president, more brother. You remember when we started the foundation? 8 years ago? Yeah, after little Jimmy died. Little Jimmy had been a prospect's son, 7 years old, brain tumor. The club had tried to help, but they'd been disorganized, reactive. By the time they'd raised enough money for experimental treatment, it was too late. Jimmy had died 3 days before his 8th birthday. The foundation had been born from that guilt, that rage at being too late. We started it, Prez continued, because we were tired of watching good people suffer while we had the power to do something about it. Tired of being seen as nothing but criminals when we knew we could be more. I remember the vote, Reaper said. Unanimous. You know why it was unanimous? Because we all knew a Jimmy, a Lily, someone who deserved better. Exactly. Prez's voice was firm now. So here's what's going to happen. Doc's going to process the application for Derek Palmer's daughter. Foundation will cover what we can. And you're going to take point on this case, make sure the family gets connected with the right resources, the right doctors, everything. Reaper blinked. Me? Why me? Because you've been exactly where this family is. You know the hospitals, the bureaucracy, the bullshit they're going to face, and because I trust you to see it through without letting your personal feelings about the father get in the way. Prez, I barely know these people. Then get to know them. That's what family does. Reaper was quiet for a moment. Family. The kind we choose, Reaper. The kind that matters. The line went dead. When Reaper returned to the booth, his steak was cold and his mother was smiling. Club business? She asked innocently. You know it was. And I'm apparently in charge of making sure Emma Palmer gets the help she needs. Martha's smile widened. Your president is a smart man. He's a pain in my ass is what he is. Language, Jackson. Reaper grinned despite himself. Some habits never died. Martha correcting his language was one of them. Derek appeared at their table, carrying a coffee pot. Refills. Both Martha and Reaper nodded. As Derek poured, his hands were steadier than before, not calm. Exactly, but less likely to spill. Mr. Palmer, Reaper said, his voice carrying that particular tone that meant business was about to be discussed. Sit down for a minute. Derek obeyed immediately, pulling up the same chair he'd used earlier. Doc's going to process your daughter's case through the foundation, Reaper continued. But there's going to be conditions. You understand? Derek nodded frantically. Anything. Whatever you need. First, you're going to give me your daughter's full medical information. Diagnosis, treatment plan, current prognosis, everything. I need to know what we're working with. Done. I can have it to you by tomorrow. Second, You're going to let me come to one of Emma's appointments, meet her, talk to her doctors, make sure the foundation money is going where it needs to go. Derek hesitated. Emma doesn't know about tonight. About what I did. She doesn't need to, Martha interjected gently. Jackson can introduce himself as a friend, someone who's been where she is and wants to help. Reaper glanced at his mother, surprised, but she was right. There was no reason to burden a sick kid with her father's mistakes. Third, Reaper continued, and this is non-negotiable. You're going to start going to therapy, anger management, stress counseling, something. Because if you crack again, if you take your desperation out on another innocent person, I can't help you. Derek's eyes filled with tears again. I will. I promise. I'll start this week. And fourth, Reaper leaned back in the booth, his expression softening just slightly. You're going to comp my mother's meals here, for life. Martha's mouth dropped open. Jackson, not negotiable, Ma. You've been coming here for 30 years. You're a loyal customer. You deserve respect, not charity, but Derek here needs to make amends. So free meals, every Tuesday, for life. Derek was nodding before Reaper finished speaking. Yes, absolutely. Free meals. Whatever Mrs. Jen wants. I don't need, Martha started. But you deserve it, Reaper cut in. Big difference. 3 weeks later, Reaper found himself sitting in a hospital waiting room that felt like a ghost of his past. Same fluorescent lights, same antiseptic smell, same vending machine in the corner that never worked properly. Even the chairs were the same uncomfortable plastic and metal contraptions that seemed designed to make waiting as unpleasant as possible. But he wasn't here for Lily this time. He was here for Emma. Derek appeared around the corner, looking exhausted, but somehow lighter than he'd been at the restaurant. Reaper, thanks for coming. Told you I would. They shook hands, a brief, firm gesture that carried more weight than words. Emma's finishing up her treatment now, Derek said, gesturing toward the oncology wing. Another 20 minutes, maybe. The nurses said you could wait in her room if you want. She's been asking about you. Reaper raised an eyebrow. You told her about me? I told her a friend was coming to visit, someone who understood what she was going through. Derek's voice cracked slightly. Someone who gave a damn when he didn't have to. They walked through the ward together, past rooms filled with kids in various stages of treatment. Some were laughing, playing video games, drawing pictures. Others were sleeping, their parents keeping vigil beside their beds. Reaper had been in these rooms before, different hospital, different decade, but the same heartbreak. Emma's room was at the end of the hall. The door was decorated with construction paper flowers and get-well cards from her school friends. A bulletin board featured photos: Emma at her 15th birthday party, Emma with her family at the beach, Emma before the cancer had stolen her hair and her energy. She was beautiful, even now with a chemo port visible above her hospital gown and dark circles under her eyes. She was beautiful. Hey kid, Reaper said, his voice gentler than most people had ever heard it. Emma looked up from her phone, her thin face breaking into a smile. You must be Jackson. Dad said you were big. But wow, you're like superhero big. Reaper laughed, an actual laugh that caught Derek by surprise. Your dad exaggerates. No, he really doesn't. Emma gestured to the chair beside her bed. He said you helped your sister through cancer when she was my age. Reaper sat down, the plastic chair groaning under his weight. Yeah, Lily. She was 14 when she got diagnosed. Worst 2 years of our lives. But she's okay now? She's great now, married, has a kid. Works as a nurse, actually. Pediatric oncology. She wanted to help other kids going through what she went through. Emma's eyes lit up. That's what I want to do. If I... She trailed off, the unspoken fear hanging in the air. When you beat this, Reaper corrected firmly. Not if, when. You sound like my dad. Your dad loves you. Makes him optimistic even when things are scary. Emma was quiet for a moment, her fingers playing with the edge of her blanket. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Was it hard? being the family member who wasn't sick, watching your sister go through this while you couldn't do anything. Reaper's jaw tightened. That was the question, wasn't it? The one nobody ever asked, but everyone felt. Hardest thing I've ever done, he admitted. Harder than anything the club ever threw at me. Because when you're in a fight, you can punch your way out. But with cancer, there's no enemy to hit, no problem to solve with your fists. You're just helpless. That's how Dad feels, Emma said softly. I can see it in his eyes. He wants to fix this and he can't. Your dad's doing everything he can, Emma. He's working himself to the bone to make sure you get the best treatment. That's not nothing. I know, but I wish. She paused, struggling with the words. I wish he could just be my dad again, you know? Not my caretaker. Not the guy who's terrified every time I cough. Just Dad. Reaper understood. God, did he understand. Tell him, Reaper said. Not today, maybe, but when you're feeling stronger, tell him you need him to be your dad, more than you need him to be your protector. He'll listen. You think so? I know so. The thing about the Hells Angels that most people don't understand is this. Brotherhood isn't just a word. It's a code, a commitment. And when the club commits to something, they go all in. Within 2 weeks of Reaper's call to Doc, the foundation had organized a charity ride. 200 bikers from chapters across California descended on Derek's town, their engines rumbling like thunder, their cuts blazing red and white in the afternoon sun. They rode through the streets in formation, a river of leather and chrome and solidarity, before ending at the fairgrounds where they'd set up booths, raffles, and the stage for local bands. Every dollar raised went directly to Emma's medical fund. Derek stood at the edge of the fairgrounds, watching in disbelief as thousands of people, bikers, civilians, families, showed up to support a girl they'd never met. How did this happen? He whispered to Reaper, who stood beside him in full club regalia. This is what we do, Reaper replied simply. We take care of our own. But Emma's not. She's not part of your club. She is now. Reaper's voice was firm. The moment I made that call to Doc, she became family, and we don't abandon family. Over the next 3 months, Reaper kept his word. He showed up to Emma's appointments, talking to her doctors, coordinating with the foundation to ensure all the bills were covered. He introduced Emma to Lily via video call, 2 cancer survivors, 15 years apart, sharing stories and hope. Derek attended therapy every week. At first he went because Reaper had made it a condition. But after a few sessions, he went because it was helping. The anger that had built up, years of stress and fear and financial pressure, began to drain away, replaced by healthier coping mechanisms. And every Tuesday night, Martha Chen ate dinner at Romano's, sometimes alone, sometimes with Reaper, sometimes with other members of her church group who'd heard about what happened and wanted to support the local restaurant that had become a symbol of second chances. Derek never charged her, not once. And he treated every customer who walked through his door with the respect they deserved, because he'd learned the hard way that everyone was fighting battles he knew nothing about. 6 months after that terrible Tuesday night at Romano's, Emma Palmer received news that would change everything. Remission. Complete remission. The cancer was gone. When Derek got the call from the oncology team, he collapsed in the restaurant's back office, sobbing so hard his assistant manager had to take over the dinner service. He called Reaper immediately, barely able to get the words out between gasps. She's going to be okay. Emma's going to be okay. Reaper, who was in the middle of a club meeting, stepped outside and closed his eyes, feeling a weight he didn't know he'd been carrying lift from his shoulders. Yeah, Derek, she is. The celebration happened at Romano's 2 weeks later. Derek closed the restaurant for a private party. Emma's family, the doctors and nurses who'd treated her, and a contingent of Hell's Angels who'd adopted this girl as one of their own. Emma sat at the head table, wearing a bright yellow dress and a headscarf decorated with sunflowers. Her parents flanked her on either side, both crying happy tears that wouldn't stop flowing. Martha was there too, holding court at a booth surrounded by bikers who treated her like royalty. She'd become something of a club legend, the widow who'd shown mercy to a man who didn't deserve it, and in doing so, saved a girl's life. When Reaper walked in, Emma immediately stood and crossed the room. She was still weak, still recovering, But there was strength in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "Jackson," she said, using his real name instead of his road name, "I need to tell you something." "What's up, kid?" "When I was at my worst, when the chemo was making me so sick I wanted to give up, I kept thinking about your sister, about how she fought, how she survived." Emma's voice was steady, determined. "And I kept thinking about you, about how you showed up at the hospital even though you didn't have to, how you treated me like I mattered, even when I felt like I didn't matter at all." She pulled something from her pocket, a small envelope, carefully folded. "I wrote you a letter," Emma continued. "About a month ago, when I found out I was in remission, I was going to mail it, but I figured I should give it to you in person." Reaper took the envelope, his massive hands making it look impossibly small. "You don't have to read it now," Emma said quickly. "But I wanted you to know. You saved my life. Not just with the money or the foundation. You saved it by showing me what it means to be strong, what it means to choose hope even when everything seems hopeless." She stood on her tiptoes and hugged him, a fierce, determined hug that Reaper returned carefully, afraid he might break her. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for caring." When she pulled back, there were tears on Reaper's face. He wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. But Emma just smiled. "It's okay to cry," she said. "My dad does it all the time now. He says it's healthy." Reaper laughed, that same genuine laugh that was becoming more common these days. "Your dad's a smart guy. Took him a while to figure it out, but he got there." Later that night, after the party had wound down and most of the guests had left, Reaper sat in his truck in the parking lot and opened Emma's letter. The handwriting was shaky but determined. "Dear Jackson, I'm not good with words like you and my dad are, so I'm just going to say what I'm thinking. 6 months ago, I was ready to give up, not because I was weak, but because I was tired. Tired of being sick. Tired of watching my parents struggle. Tired of feeling like I was a burden on everyone. Then my dad told me about you, about how you helped your sister through cancer, about how you showed up at the hospital to meet me even though we were strangers, about how your whole club rallied to help our family because that's what brothers do. And I realized something. Strength isn't about never being scared. It's about being scared and choosing to keep fighting anyway. That's what you taught me. Not through words, but through actions. By showing up. By caring. By being the kind of person who sees someone in pain and decides to help, even when they don't have to. I'm in remission now. The doctors say I have a really good chance of staying that way, and when I graduate high school, and I will graduate, I'm going to become a nurse. Just like your sister. Just like your mom was. Because I want to help other people the way you helped me. So thank you, Jackson, Reaper Chen. Thank you for showing me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. About showing up. About being there when it matters most. You're my hero, and I'll never forget what you did for me and my family. Love, Emma. 2 years after that Tuesday night that changed everything, the weekly ritual continues. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock sharp, Martha Chen walks into Romano's family restaurant. She sits at her favorite booth in the corner. She orders the chicken parmesan with extra marinara, and more often than not, her son joins her. Jackson, Reaper, Chenna, still a Hell's Angel, still a road captain, still carrying the weight of his club on his massive shoulders, takes an hour every Tuesday to be Jackson, not Reaper. Just Jackson, Martha's son. The kid who used to cry over injured animals and give his lunch money to homeless men. Derek Palmer manages the restaurant with a gentle competence that comes from therapy, growth, and the humility of knowing he's been given a second chance. He's a better father now, a better husband, a better man. Not because someone beat the lesson into him, but because someone showed him mercy when he least deserved it. And Emma? Emma's thriving. 17 years old, 2 years cancer-free, working at the restaurant on weekends to save money for nursing school. She wears a small serpent and skull pendant around her neck, a gift from the Hell's Angels Charity Foundation, as a reminder of where she's been and where she's going. Tonight, as Reaper cuts into his steak and Martha sips her water, Derek approaches their booth with a nervous energy that makes both of them look up. "Everything okay?" Martha asks. "Better than okay," Derek says, his voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to tell you first, before I tell the rest of the staff. Emma got her acceptance letter today. UC Davis nursing program, full scholarship." Martha's face lights up. "Derek, that's wonderful." Reaper sets down his fork and extends his hand. "Congratulations! She's going to be a great nurse." Derek shakes Reaper's hand, holding it just a moment longer than necessary. "She wouldn't be going to nursing school if it wasn't for you," Derek says quietly. "She wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you. I know I've said it before, but thank you. Thank you for seeing past my worst moment and choosing to help anyway." Reaper is quiet for a beat. Then he says something that surprises even himself. "You gave me something too, Derek." "What?" "Reminded me why we started the foundation in the first place. Reminded me that being strong isn't just about throwing punches or riding with your brothers. Sometimes it's about mercy, about choosing to build instead of destroy." He glances at his mother, who's smiling that knowing smile of hers. "My dad, my real dad, used to say that every man's fighting a battle you know nothing about. I believed him in theory, but you taught me what that actually means in practice." Derek wipes his eyes, laughing through the tears. "So, we saved each other?" Something like that. As Derek walks away to continue his shift, Martha reaches across the table and takes her son's hand. "I'm proud of you," she says simply. "For what?" "Doing what anyone should have done. For being the man your father and I raised you to be. For choosing compassion over vengeance. For showing the world that those colors you wear," she gestures to his cut, "don't define you, you define them." Reaper squeezes his mother's hand, feeling the familiar weight of those words settle in his chest. Outside, the sun is setting over the parking lot where his Harley sits next to a dozen other bikes. His brothers, who joined him for Tuesday dinner, because that's what brothers do. They show up, they support, they protect. And inside Romano's family restaurant, in a corner booth under fluorescent lights that have seen 1,000 meals, a mother and her son share dinner, just like every Tuesday, just like always. Because some traditions are worth keeping, and some families, the ones you choose, the ones you fight for, the ones you save, and who save you in return, are forever. So that's Emma's story, a story of redemption, second chances, and the unexpected ways we save each other. I want to hear from you what moment in this story touched your heart the most. Was it Reaper choosing mercy, Derek's breakdown about his daughter, Emma's letter, Martha's wisdom? Comment below and tell me what resonated with you. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week I bring you true emotional stories about bikers, brotherhood, and the power of compassion. These stories matter. Your support helps me keep telling them. And here's a sneak peek at next week's story. A Hells Angels prospect discovers his missing sister is being held by a rival gang and has to choose between club loyalty and family. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Choose mercy. Choose to be the hero in someone else's story.